The hallways of Westbrook Academy echoed with whispers as Liam Thompson walked through its prestigious doors. His academic brilliance had earned him a coveted scholarship, but now one small detail threatened everything: his shoes. In a sea of designer footwear, his worn-out sneakers stood out like a lighthouse in darkness. Nobody expected what happened next when Hollywood's most beloved star showed up wearing the exact same pair. Liam Thompson always understood the weight of sacrifice. Every morning, he watched his mother leave for her first job at 5 a.m., only to return home past midnight from her second. Their small apartment above Joe's hardware store wasn't much, but Sandra Thompson had turned it into a home filled with love, determination, and dreams for her only son. Academic excellence came naturally to Liam. At Lincoln Public High, his name appeared consistently at the top of every class ranking. Teachers spoke about him in hushed, reverent tones during staff meetings, the kind of student who comes along once in a generation. When the letter arrived from Westbrook Academy offering a full academic scholarship for his senior year, Sandra cried tears of joy. Westbrook wasn't just any private school. It was the launching pad for future leaders, with alumni including senators, CEOs, and even a Supreme Court justice. But excellence at Westbrook meant more than just grades. The unwritten social code was carved into every marble pillar and mahogany-paneled wall. Students arrived in luxury cars, carried designer bags, and wore shoes that cost more than Sandra's monthly rent. The scholarship covered tuition, books, and uniforms, but it couldn't bridge the vast canyon between Liam's world and theirs. The sneakers weren't just footwear, they represented everything. Sandra had saved for 3 months to buy them for Liam's 16th birthday. They weren't the premium brand that his new classmates wore, but they were the best she could afford. Liam kept them immaculate, cleaning them every evening, treating each scuff mark like a battle scar that told a story of perseverance. During his first semester at Westbrook, Liam mastered the art of blending in. He learned to time his arrival perfectly, not too early to draw attention, not too late to make a scene. He positioned himself in the middle of classrooms, spoke only when called upon, and kept his eyes focused on his books during lunch periods. His grades remained exceptional, but he carried them quietly, like a secret too precious to share. The facade worked until winter break. Sandra's hours at the diner were cut, and her night job at the cleaning service barely covered their basic expenses. The careful financial balance they'd maintained began to crumble. Liam watched his mother's shoulders sink lower each evening as she counted coins at their kitchen table, trying to stretch every dollar into two. That morning, as Liam prepared for the first day of his final semester at Westbrook, he stared at his sneakers. The wear was becoming visible. Small cracks in the synthetic leather, the sole beginning to separate at the edges. In the past, he might have found a way to replace them before anyone noticed. But now, with their savings depleted and his mother working herself to exhaustion, these shoes would have to last. The irony wasn't lost on him. These same sneakers had carried him through countless academic victories. They'd supported him as he stood at podiums accepting awards, as he paced in libraries preparing for debates, as he walked across stages collecting honors. They were more than just shoes. They were a testament to every sacrifice his mother had made, every extra shift she'd taken, every dream she deferred for his future. What Liam didn't know that morning was how these worn-out sneakers would become the catalyst for a change much bigger than himself. As he laced them up, smoothing out the creases with careful fingers, he couldn't have imagined that they would soon catch the attention of not just his school, but the entire nation. He couldn't have known that these humble shoes would become a symbol in a battle for dignity, acceptance, and the true meaning of merit in America's educational system. And he certainly couldn't have predicted that these same sneakers would forge an unexpected connection with one of Hollywood's most beloved stars, a man whose own journey from hardship to success would help transform not just Liam's life, but the lives of countless students who would follow in his footsteps. As Liam stepped out of their apartment that morning, his mother called out her usual goodbye. "Show them what you're made of, baby." He squared his shoulders, took a deep breath, and headed toward Westbrook, unaware that he was about to do exactly that, in a way that would shake the foundations of privilege and redefine what it means to belong. The whispers started in first period advanced calculus. Liam noticed Charlotte Wilson nudging Sophia, their eyes darting to his feet before quickly looking away. By third period European history, the murmurs had evolved into barely concealed snickers. During lunch, he overheard snippets of conversation. "Did you see? Those can't be real. How did he even get in here?" Liam kept his head high, focusing on his textbooks and assignments. But his carefully constructed barrier began to crack when Brett Harrison, whose father sat on the school board, loudly announced to their physics class, I guess standards really are slipping around here. The breaking point came during afternoon assembly. As students filed into the auditorium's plush seats, Dean Victoria Montgomery's sharp eyes scanned the crowd with military precision. Her gaze stopped at Liam's feet, her perfectly manicured hand rising to adjust her designer glasses for a better look. "Mr. Thompson," she called out, her voice cutting through the pre-assembly chatter. "A word, please." The walk to her office felt endless. Liam counted each step, the worn soles of his sneakers whispering against the polished marble floors. The dean's office, with its dark wood paneling and oil paintings of past administrators, radiated centuries of tradition and privilege. Dean Montgomery settled behind her massive desk, a leather-bound copy of the school handbook already open before her. "Mr. Thompson, you've been an interesting addition to our Westbrook family. Your academic performance has been noteworthy, but there are certain standards we must maintain." She turned the handbook toward him, perfectly polished nail tapping section 3.4 of the dress code. "Footwear must be appropriate for a learning environment of our caliber. Your current choice of shoes falls well below these standards." Liam felt heat rising in his chest. "My shoes are clean, Dean Montgomery. They're not damaged. They're just not expensive." "This isn't about expense, Mr. Thompson. It's about presenting oneself in a manner befitting a Westbrook student. We have a reputation to maintain. Surely you understand that your current footwear reflects poorly on our institution." The words hit Liam like physical blows. Each carefully enunciated syllable stripped away another layer of his dignity. "My mother worked extra shifts to buy these shoes," he said, his voice quiet but steady. "They might not meet your standards, but they meet mine." Dean Montgomery's expression hardened. "I'm afraid this isn't a matter of opinion, Mr. Thompson. You have until tomorrow morning to procure appropriate footwear, or we'll need to re-evaluate your position here at Westbrook." "You're threatening my scholarship over shoes?" The question escaped before he could stop it. "I'm enforcing our standards, Mr. Thompson. Standards that every student, regardless of their circumstances, must meet. We made quite an exception in accepting you here. The least you could do is show proper respect for our traditions." Liam stood, his hands trembling slightly. "My test scores got me into this school, Dean Montgomery. My grades kept me here. Neither of those things came from my shoes." "That kind of attitude precisely proves my point." She began writing on an official letterhead. "You have until tomorrow morning. If you arrive wearing those shoes again, you'll need to clear out your locker. I'm sure you can find another school more suitable to your situation." As Liam left her office, the weight of the ultimatum pressed down on his shoulders. He knew his mother had exactly $43.28 in their checking account. He'd seen her check the balance that morning. A new pair of shoes that would meet Westbrook standards would cost 10 times that amount. In the bathroom, he splashed cold water on his face and stared at his reflection. His mother's voice echoed in his head. "Show them what you're made of." But what was he made of? Was he willing to watch his mother take on more debt, work even longer hours, just so he could wear shoes that pleased Dean Montgomery? The final bell rang, and Liam made his decision. He walked to his locker, ignoring the stares and whispers that followed him. As he began packing his books, Mr. Rodriguez, his Spanish teacher, approached. "I heard what happened," he said quietly. "This isn't right, Liam. Let me talk to the board. We can fight this." Liam shook his head. "They made their choice, Mr. Rodriguez. And I'm making mine." As he zipped his backpack, his phone buzzed. A local news reporter had somehow gotten wind of the story and wanted a comment. Liam declined the call, but within hours, social media was ablaze. #Westbrook shoes started trending locally, then nationally. Former students began sharing stories of similar experiences with the school's elitism. Liam didn't want to be a hashtag or a cause. He just wanted an education. But as he walked toward the school's exit, his worn sneakers echoing in the empty hallway, he realized this had become something bigger than just him. This was about every student who'd ever felt less than worthy because they couldn't afford the right clothes, the right car, the right life. What he didn't know was that fate, in the form of Hollywood's most down-to-earth star, was about to take an unexpected interest in his story. The morning sun cast long shadows across Westbrook's manicured lawn as Liam arrived early to clean out his locker. His mother Sandra stood beside him, her diner uniform wrinkled from her overnight shift, but her head held high. She hadn't slept after Liam told her about Dean Montgomery's ultimatum, spending hours instead calling every store in town, trying to find affordable shoes that might meet the school's standards. News vans lined the street outside the school gates. Someone had leaked the story to every major network in the state. Sandra gripped Liam's hand as they walked past the reporters, ignoring their shouted questions and camera flashes. "You don't have to do this, baby," she whispered. "We could try to find a way." Liam squeezed her hand back. "No, Mom. You've sacrificed enough." Inside, the normally bustling hallways felt eerily quiet. A few early arriving students stopped to stare, quickly averting their eyes when Liam looked their way. At his locker, Liam began methodically removing his books, academic awards, and the small photo of him and his mother at his public school graduation. Mr. Rodriguez appeared, carrying a box of tissues that he quietly handed to Sandra, who was trying to hide her tears. "The teachers are meeting right now," he said. "Many of us are fighting this decision. Dean Montgomery doesn't speak for everyone." Sandra dabbed at her eyes. "My boy earned his place here. 4.0 GPA, perfect SAT scores, 3 academic competition wins. All while helping me with bills, working weekends at the grocery store. And they're throwing him out over shoes." The growing crowd of students in the hallway shifted uncomfortably. Some looked ashamed, others defiant. Brett Harrison stood at the edge of the group, phone in hand, smirking as he typed what would undoubtedly become another social media post mocking the situation. A local news reporter had somehow made it past security. She approached with a microphone extended. "Liam, how do you feel about being expelled over your choice of footwear? Do you think this exposes a deeper problem of elitism in private education?" Before Liam could respond, Dean Montgomery's voice cut through the crowd. "This is private property. All media personnel must leave immediately." She strode forward, flanked by 2 security guards. "Mr. Thompson, once you've collected your belongings, please exit the premises. Your scholarship has been officially terminated." Sandra stepped between the dean and her son. "You're making a terrible mistake. These shoes, they're honest shoes. Bought with honest money. My son worked hard for his place here." "Mrs. Thompson," Dean Montgomery's tone dripped with condescension, "Westbrook Academy has maintained its prestigious reputation through strict adherence to our standards. Every student here understands and accepts these requirements." "Every student whose parents can afford $1,000 shoes, you mean?" Sandra's voice trembled with anger. "What about merit? What about achievement?" "Perhaps," Dean Montgomery adjusted her glasses, "you should have considered these requirements before accepting our scholarship offer." The hallway fell silent. Even the reporter lowered her microphone, the moment too raw for broadcast. Liam continued packing his locker, each book feeling heavier than the last. His hands brushed against his physics project, the one that had won first place in the state competition just 2 months ago. The same project that had earned him a personal congratulation from the school board chairman. Charlotte Wilson, one of his classmates, suddenly stepped forward. "This isn't fair. Liam helps everyone with their calculus homework. He tutored half our class before midterms." "Miss Wilson," Dean Montgomery warned, "this is not up for discussion." More students began speaking up. "He raised our class average. He doesn't even charge for tutoring like the others do." But their voices faded under Dean Montgomery's stern glare. Sandra's phone buzzed, her boss at the diner warning her she'd be fired if she didn't make it to her shift. The choice between standing with her son and keeping her job painted fresh tears in her eyes. "Go, Mom," Liam said softly. "I can handle this. Baby, please. We need that job." Sandra hugged him fiercely, whispering, "I'm so proud of you," before hurrying away, her footsteps echoing in the hushed hallway. Liam zipped his backpack closed, taking one last look at his now empty locker. 4 years of dreams, compressed into a single moment of defeat. He turned to face Dean Montgomery, who stood waiting expectantly, her expression a mask of institutional authority. "I hope," Liam said clearly, making sure everyone could hear, "that one day you understand what real standards look like." As he walked toward the exit, his worn sneakers squeaking slightly on the polished floor, a commotion erupted outside. The sound of excited chatter and gasps filtered through the heavy doors. Someone was arriving. Someone important enough to part the sea of reporters like Moses at the Red Sea. Liam pushed open the door, stepping into the bright morning sun, completely unaware that his story was about to take an extraordinary turn. A black SUV pulled up to Westbrook's front entrance, and the crowd fell silent as Keanu Reeves stepped out. He wore simple jeans, a black t-shirt, and on his feet, the exact same model of sneakers as Liam. The reporters, who seconds ago had been shouting questions, stood speechless. Keanu had been filming his latest movie just 3 blocks away when a production assistant showed him the trending story on social media. The moment he saw Liam's shoes in the viral photos, he recognized them immediately. They were the same practical, affordable sneakers he'd worn throughout his own youth, and still wore regularly despite his success. Without telling his production team, he'd left the set and driven straight to Westbrook. The security guards, caught between starstruck awe and their professional duties, didn't even try to stop him as he walked through the front gates. Students pressed against windows, phones recording every step as Keanu approached Liam. "Those are good shoes," Keanu said, pointing down at Liam's footwear. "I've worn the same brand since I was your age. They last forever if you take care of them." Liam stared, his backpack slipping from his shoulder. Behind him, Dean Montgomery emerged from the building, her usual composure cracking at the sight of one of Hollywood's biggest stars standing in her school's courtyard. "Mr. Reeves," she started. "What an unexpected pleasure, I read about what's happening here," Keanu interrupted, his voice carrying across the now silent courtyard. "About a student being pushed out because his shoes don't meet certain standards. Thing is, I'm wearing the exact same shoes right now. Are you going to tell me I'm not good enough to be here too?" Dean Montgomery's face flushed. "Mr. Reeves, this is a private school matter. You know what I see." Keanu continued, addressing the growing crowd rather than the dean. "I see a kid who earned his place here, who worked hard enough to get a scholarship, who's probably inspiring other students to work harder too. And you want to throw all that away because of what he's wearing on his feet?" Students began nodding, some filming on their phones, others exchanging meaningful looks. Brett Harrison, who had been smirking earlier, slowly lowered his phone, his expression uncertain. "When I was starting out in acting, plenty of people judged me by what I wore," Keanu shared. "They said I didn't look the part, didn't fit their image of what a star should be. But you know what matters? The work, the talent, the dedication. Everything I've heard about Liam shows he has all of that." A member of the school board, Mr. Phillips, pushed through the crowd, apparently having been called to handle the situation. "Mr. Reeves, while we appreciate your concern, Westbrook Academy has maintained certain standards for over a century. Maybe it's time for new standards," Keanu suggested. "Standards based on character, on achievement, on what someone can contribute to your community." Liam's shoes didn't write his perfect SAT score. They didn't win those academic competitions. He did that. The crowd had grown larger, with teachers and students from every grade level gathering to witness this unprecedented moment. Mr. Rodriguez stood at the front, beaming with pride as his student's story reached a national celebrity. "You know what I think?" Keanu addressed the students directly. "I think real excellence isn't about what you wear. It's about who you are, what you do, how you treat others." From what I've heard, Liam Thompson represents excellence in all the ways that actually matter. Dean Montgomery attempted one last defense. "Our dress code exists to maintain a professional learning environment. I've worked with some of the most successful people in the world," Keanu countered. "You know what they all have in common? It's not their shoes. It's their mind, their heart, their willingness to work hard and lift others up along the way." He turned to Liam. "Your mom works 2 jobs to support your education, right?" Liam nodded, still somewhat stunned by the surreal turn of events. "That's real excellence right there. That's the kind of dedication that should be celebrated, not punished. Those shoes you're wearing? They're a badge of honor. They tell a story of sacrifice, of hard work, of real values." The morning sun had fully risen now, casting a golden light across the school's courtyard as Keanu placed a hand on Liam's shoulder. The moment felt historic, as if the very foundations of Westbrook's century-old traditions were shifting beneath their feet. No one in that courtyard could have predicted this ending when the day began. Not Liam, who'd arrived expecting to leave in defeat. Not Dean Montgomery, whose rigid enforcement of rules had backfired spectacularly. And certainly not the students, who were watching their school's social hierarchy being dismantled by a Hollywood star in the same modest sneakers they'd been mocking hours earlier. The story had transformed from a simple dress code violation into something much more significant. A moment of reckoning for an institution that had perhaps lost sight of what truly matters in education. And it wasn't over yet. As Keanu stood there, his own well-worn sneakers a testament to his authenticity, it became clear that Westbrook Academy was about to experience a change that would reshape its future forever. The emergency school board meeting convened within the hour. The mahogany-paneled boardroom, usually reserved for quarterly budget reviews and policy discussions, now overflowed with students, teachers, parents, and media representatives. Keanu Reeves sat next to Liam in the front row, their identical sneakers a powerful visual statement that photographers couldn't resist capturing. Board Chairman Richard Phillips called the meeting to order, his usual confident demeanor somewhat shaken by the national attention now focused on Westbrook. Social media had exploded with the story, with #WestbrookShoes and #KeanuCares trending nationwide. Celebrity activists and education reformers were already calling for investigations into discriminatory practices at elite private schools. Given the unprecedented circumstances, Phillips began, we've convened this emergency session to address the situation regarding Mr. Thompson's enrollment status and our broader dress code policies. Dean Montgomery presented her case first, clutching her copy of the school handbook like a shield. She spoke about traditions, standards, and the importance of maintaining Westbrook's prestigious image. But her words sounded hollow in the face of what had transpired that morning. Mr. Rodriguez stood next, armed with statistics about Liam's academic achievements. In one semester, this young man has raised our school's average test scores. He's tutored 27 students, helped our debate team win regionals, and submitted a physics project that's been nominated for a national competition. All while working weekends to help his mother pay bills. Sandra Thompson had rushed back from her diner shift, still wearing her uniform. Her voice trembled as she addressed the board. My son never asked for special treatment. He only asked for a chance to learn, to grow, to make something of himself. I worked extra shifts to buy those shoes, and watching him get punished for that breaks my heart. Keanu's presence added unprecedented weight to the proceedings. When he stood to speak, every phone in the room raised to record his words. I've played many roles in my career, he began, but the most important role any of us can play is being true to ourselves. Liam Thompson represents everything education should be about: determination, intelligence, character. If your standards can't recognize that, then maybe your standards need to change. The board retreated for deliberation. The waiting felt endless. Liam sat quietly, watching the sunlight shift across the floor tiles. He felt his mother's hand gripping his on one side, and was surprised to feel Keanu's supportive pat on his shoulder from the other. When the board returned, Chairman Phillips looked both humbled and resolved. Today has forced us to confront some uncomfortable truths about our institution, he announced. Westbrook Academy was founded to nurture excellence, but somewhere along the way, we began confusing external appearances with internal merit. He continued, detailing immediate policy changes. The dress code would be completely revised, focusing on cleanliness and appropriateness rather than brands or costs. More significantly, the board would establish the Thompson Reeves Scholarship Fund, dedicated to supporting high-achieving students from economically disadvantaged backgrounds. Furthermore, Phillips added, we owe Mr. Thompson an apology. His enrollment is immediately reinstated, with a formal commendation added to his record for maintaining exceptional academic standards while facing unjust persecution. Dean Montgomery's face tightened, but she remained silent as Chairman Phillips continued. Additionally, we're creating a student-faculty committee to review all school policies for potential economic discrimination. Mr. Thompson, would you be willing to serve as the inaugural student chair? The room erupted in applause. Liam stood, straightened his shoulders, and nodded. I would be honored, sir. But I have one condition. The room hushed. Chairman Phillips raised an eyebrow. Yes. The committee needs to include students from all economic backgrounds. Real change happens when everyone works together. Keanu broke into a wide smile, and the applause resumed, louder than before. Even some board members joined in. Dean Montgomery quietly gathered her papers and slipped out a side door, her rigid worldview clearly shaken. As the meeting concluded, students surrounded Liam, many apologizing for their earlier silence or complicity. Brett Harrison approached awkwardly, hand extended. I was wrong, he said simply. I'm sorry. Keanu stayed through it all, talking with students, taking photos, and sharing stories about his own experiences with prejudice and perseverance. Before leaving, he exchanged contact information with Liam. "Keep wearing those shoes proudly," he said. "They tell your story. And it's a story worth telling." Sandra hugged her son tightly, tears flowing freely now. "You showed them exactly what you're made of, baby." The events of that day transformed Westbrook Academy. The story made national headlines, sparking discussions about economic discrimination in education across the country. Other private schools began reviewing their policies, and several states launched investigations into similar discriminatory practices. But the most profound changes happened within Westbrook's walls. Students from different economic backgrounds started mixing more freely. The tutoring program Liam had informally started became an official school initiative. Even the cafeteria atmosphere changed, with less focus on designer labels and more on genuine connections. As Liam walked to his next class, his worn sneakers no longer drew stares. Instead, they had become a symbol of something larger, a reminder that true excellence comes in many forms, and that sometimes the most valuable lessons happen outside the classroom. The incident with the shoes had started as a moment of shame but ended as a catalyst for change. It proved that sometimes the most powerful statements come not from what we wear on our feet, but from how we stand up for what's right. 3 months after the sneaker incident, as it came to be known, Westbrook Academy had undergone a remarkable transformation. The Thompson Reeves Scholarship Fund had already raised over $2 million, with contributions pouring in from alumni who'd been moved by Liam's story. Keanu Reeves himself had made a substantial anonymous donation, though the media eventually discovered the source. Liam's daily routine had changed significantly. He still arrived early each morning, but now he spent that time helping other scholarship students navigate the challenges he'd faced. The Student Lounge, once an unofficial showcase for luxury brands, had become a vibrant study center where students from all backgrounds gathered to support each other academically. Sandra Thompson's life changed too. With the publicity surrounding her son's story, several local business owners offered her better-paying positions with flexible hours. She chose to manage a new community center cafe, which allowed her to spend more evenings at home. The worn shoes that had sparked everything sat in a place of honor on their mantle, a reminder of their journey. The effects rippled far beyond Westbrook's campus. Education reporters began investigating similar cases across the country, uncovering numerous instances of economic discrimination masked as dress codes or presentation standards. Several state legislatures drafted bills specifically addressing socioeconomic bias in private education, with some nicknamed Liam's Law. Dean Montgomery resigned shortly after the incident, though she later wrote a surprisingly candid article about how the experience had changed her perspective on privilege and education. Her replacement, Emily, brought a fresh approach to maintaining high standards while ensuring genuine inclusivity. Keanu Reeves kept his promise to stay connected. He established a mentorship program at Westbrook, connecting successful professionals from humble backgrounds with promising students facing similar challenges. During his monthly video calls with the student committee, he often wore his famous sneakers, which had become a symbol of authenticity throughout the school. As graduation approached, Liam found himself working on his valedictorian speech. His academic performance had never wavered. If anything, the experience had strengthened his determination to excel. The speech would be televised, with education leaders from across the country attending to hear his message. The changes at Westbrook went far deeper than dress codes and scholarship funds. Students began organizing food drives, tutoring programs for local public schools, and workshops on economic empowerment. The school's application numbers soared, with talented students from diverse backgrounds seeing Westbrook as a place where they could belong. Brett Harrison, once the loudest critic of Liam's shoes, had undergone perhaps the most surprising transformation. He used his family's connections to create an internship program specifically for first-generation college-bound students, saying the incident had opened his eyes to his own unexamined privileges. On graduation day, Liam wore a new pair of the same sneaker model under his gown. Sandra sat in the front row, beaming with pride, while Keanu Reeves attended quietly in the back, wanting the spotlight to remain on the students. As Liam approached the podium to deliver his speech, he caught sight of his reflection in the glass. The same determined young man who'd walked through Westbrook's doors that first day, but now standing taller, stronger, validated. The story of the shoes that changed Westbrook became more than just a viral moment or a celebrity intervention. It became a lesson about courage, about standing up for what's right, about the true meaning of excellence. Years later, new students would tour the campus and stop at a special display case in the library, where those original worn sneakers sat alongside photos and news clippings, telling the story of the day when one student's integrity, one mother's sacrifice, and one actor's compassion combined to change countless lives. The legacy lived on in every scholarship student who walked through Westbrook's doors, in every policy that prioritized character over appearances, and in every moment when someone chose to judge others by their actions rather than their accessories. Liam's shoes had started as a symbol of what some considered inadequacy, but ended up becoming a powerful reminder that true worth can never be measured by what we wear, only by who we choose to be.